before we begin, Team Double A, do you have a copy of your roster, please?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Okay. All right. The court will now hear the case of Carlin George versus Naylor Stagram. You guys stood in second. Are there any conflicts between the teams and the judging panel? No?
No conflict, Your Honor.
No conflict.
All right. Is there anybody in the courtroom not affiliated with either team present? All right, good. Reminder that all electronic devices must be turned off and no communications allowed between participating team members and others in the courtroom until the trial is concluded. I'm aware of that. That means no cell phones on, no smartwatches. No smartwatches. All right.
I have one, but it's not connected to my phone.
I have one too, but it's off.
As long as it remains off, we're fine. Okay.
Just another video camera.
Are you for the other team?
For AA, yeah.
You're for team AA. Okay. We will collect the file that it's stored on and hold it until the end of the trial. Okay. All right. Okay. Team Double A, Team Double N, no objections to being videoed by either side, correct?
No, sir, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Witnesses, are you okay with that? Witnesses, all right. Timekeepers, court remarks ready in place? No
Yes.
No court remarks, all right. Got team rosters for Double A in. All right. We'll start with counsel for both sides. Plaintiff and defense, please rise. All right. We'll start with plaintiff. Please introduce yourself by name and who you will be directing and crossing.
Your Honor, my name is Luke Blazik. I'm the lead attorney for the prosecution. I will be direct examining Carlin George. I'll be providing the opening statement, and I'll be cross-examining Naylor Stagram.
Okay.
Your Honor, I'm Jude Monter. I am directing Chase Ford, and I'm cross-examining Jackie Gleason.
Could you spell your last name for me, please?
M-O-N-T-E-R, Monter.
M-O-N-T-E-R. Correct. All right, thank you.
Your Honor, my name is Jack Jackson. I will be conducting the direct examination of Murphy Edwards and the cross-examination of Sean Wallace.
All right, defense.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Kinsey Cope, and I will be directing Jackie Gleason and cross-examining Carlin George.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Rudy Lee, and I will be direct examining Naylor Stagram and cross-examining Murphy Edwards, and I will also be delivering our closing statement.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Mason Trammell. Today I'll be directing Sean Wallace and crossing Chase Ford, and I will also be delivering the opening statement for defense.
Okay. All right, counsel may be seated. Witnesses for both sides, please rise. We'll start with the plaintiff and have you introduce yourself and the character you'll be playing.
My name is Lily Weir. I'm going to be portraying George. My name is Allison Peterman, and I will be playing Murphy Edwards.
My name is Anna Bruce, and I will be playing Chase Ford.
My name is Juliet Coffey, and I will be portraying Sean Wallace.
Your Honor, members of the jury, my name is Eliza Matedich, and I will be portraying the part of Jackie Gleason.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Taylor Owen, and I'll be portraying the role of Naylor Stagram.
I have you as not participating in this round on your roster.
Taylor Owen.
Yeah, she's not participating in this round according to this roster.
Do you have Eliza Matedich and Juliet Coffey in there as well?
I have Juliet and Eliza as witnesses, but I do not have Taylor Owen.
Sorry about that. I'm going to get you a correct copy.
You may.
My apologies.
Okay, yes, that is your, yep, that is correct.
Right.
You gave me the plan copy. All right. All right, we're good now. All right, hold on. Swear you in real quick. Do you, please raise your right hands. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
All right, you may be seated. All right. Are there any preliminary matters that you decide wishes to raise?
Yes, Your Honor. We ask that we may move about the well during cross-examination, direct examination, and closing and opening statements.
You may. However, should you wish to approach the witness, you ask for permission, and should you wish to introduce an exhibit in evidence before you approach the witness, you will show it to opposing counsel. I'll just say that now. I won't have to remind you during trial.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Defense?
Your Honor, we ask for the same courtesies granted to opposing counsel.
Same courtesies granted.
And with that, the defense is present and ready to proceed.
Plaintiff, ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Plaintiff, if you're ready to proceed, we'll go ahead and trial.
Are the members of the jury ready? And Your Honor. Mahatma Gandhi once said that when a man's motives are put into question, all of his actions become tainted. Your Honor, members of the jury, today we are faced with a case of liability, where a man, the plaintiff, Carlin George, was lied to and deceived by the defendant, Naylor Stegram. Carlin George depended on a chirp that the defendant produced as a record of what the satire spectacle was to be, and the defendant misled him. While this is a civil court, the prosecution has a responsibility to prove that beyond a preponderance of evidence that the defendant, Naylor Stegram, is liable for the waterborne illness and the hospital charges that were bestowed onto Carlin George. Number one, the defendant produced a chirp that quoted that the satire spectacle was going to be an event that had never been seen before, an event that was going to be spectacular. He was promoting consumers to buy their tickets to get on as soon as possible, and they were led to believe that this was the type of entertainment that they would receive upon going to the event. Carlin George, the plaintiff, believed this from the defendant and therefore acted upon it. The second point for preponderance of evidence is that the defendant's chirp was based on a false statement, an unrealistic truth. Naylor Stegram visited Yarborough Island on June 18th, a mere 12 days for the satire spectacle performance, and yet described the current state of construction as squatty potties and scaffolding everywhere. Quote, gross. And yet, that same day, he chirped, everybody upgrade their tickets. This is going to blow away minds, spectacular. And that's the very chirp that Carlin George bought his ticket from, which led to his ultimate fate of landing in the hospital. Number three, to continue off my last point, is that the plaintiff, Carlin George, used this chirp that Naylor Stegram produced not only on June 18th, but in a cycle of 19 chirps leading up to the ultimate cancellation of the event, where Naylor Stegram, on only 11 of them, established that this was a paid advertisement and was tweeting how spectacular, how over the top, how great this event was going to be. And the plaintiff believed that. He took it to heart, and he used life savings to purchase tickets in the thousands of dollars that dug deep into his bank account. He was passionate about it, and he wanted to do it because he felt trust in the defendant, He trusted that the defendant was going to lead him to the right way, and yet this simply did not happen. And finally, because of this deceit, Carlin George was ultimately put in the hospital because he showed up to an event where the lack of resources, the lack of food, the complete inadequacy to put together the satire spectacle led to a man drinking water out of a puddle, obtaining a waterborne illness, and being charged thousands of dollars in medical finances that he simply cannot afford given his mere profession as a bank teller. Members of the jury, as you'll see, through these 4 points, the prosecution will drill that the preponderance of evidence exceeds 51%. Where Naylor Stagram knew what the state of the satire spectacle was in. And with even that knowledge, he continued to chirp and promote and to deceive those following him to attend the event. And because of this was Carlin George's ultimate fate. Through our witnesses, Chase Ford, the CEO of Vision, will show that an aspiring entrepreneur simply wanted to make a good show, and yet a selfish, self-centered social media influencer wanted to absorb all the fame simply to help her brand image. And Murphy Edwards, an employee of the satire spectacle, will show that the working conditions and the state of the event was simply not what it was. Thank you.
Defense counsel?
May it please the court, members of counsel, and the jury. Members of the jury, today in this case you will hear about 6 particular persons who were involved in this. My client, Miss Naylor Stagram, a social media influencer, along with her employer for this endeavor, Mrs. Chase Ford, the architect of the satire spectacle event, and along with them you'll hear another significant person speaking today, Miss Carlin George, the innocent victim of circumstance involved in this situation. However, those are not the only characters who will be involved in this. Along with that, there is present Miss Murphy Edwards, a contract laborer with a bit of a temper, as you'll soon come to find out. You will also hear from Miss Shawn Wallace, a self-made businesswoman with a heart of gold, and after the events that happened, empty pockets. If you're lucky, today, you shall even be graced by a few words from comedian extraordinaire Jackie Gleason. All had their part in this case. However, admittedly, this case in itself is, to me anyway, a bit like a poorly written comedy, trying to masquerade itself as a tragedy. It comes, in this case, an innocent victim was harmed by the actions of another. The accusation, the blame falls upon in the play that is this case, 3 primary themes are painfully present: accountability, blame, and consequence. The accountability, or lack thereof, of certain persons in control of the event. The blame that persons in control of this event threw onto everybody else except himself, as to secure their safety in the aftermath of the chaos that was the satire spectacle, and the consequences faced by the poor souls who had to suffer because of the mishandled blame of the creator of the satire spectacle. You will find out today that my client, Miss Naylor-Stagram, is really not liable, not able to be found liable in this case. The preponderance of evidence was mentioned, and by the end of this, the facts will show you that the scales of likelihood to unlikelihood of liability will most certainly be tipped in the defendant's favor, as the plaintiff simply does not have enough weight to manage to tip the scales in their favor and prove that the other innocent victim, one of the many innocent victims of the satire spectacle, is liable for the pain of others. In reality, the cause of the pain of all these victims from this spectacular failure of the spectacle can be thrown onto another in this very courtroom, as you will soon find out. I believe that by the end of this trial today, you, the jury, will be able to determine with near certainty, though that is not necessary, that my client, Naylor-Stagram, is unable to be found liable for the charges pressed against her. Thank you.
All right, please call your first witness.
The plaintiff would like to call Murphy Edwards to the stand. Now, Miss Edwards, what is your job?
I work at a concert hall and at a stadium, set of technology, stuff like that.
And why did you take on the project of the satire spectacle?
So the business was slow. Looked like a good job. Paid $20 an hour. Something nice.
When you started your job, whom did you meet with?
I contacted the foreman. His name was Vinny something. Looked like my cousin. And then he said he didn't believe me when I first came. But I showed him my credibility and he hired me.
Now, when you started with the project, how did you get out to the island?
Well, we were supposed to go out by seaplane. What seaplane? We came out there and there was nothing. We had to crash in the hangar overnight, and then when we went over by boat the next day, most of us were hurtling our stomachs up sick.
And then once you got to the island, what did you find?
Not a whole lot. About half the things we needed there to set up the stage, there were no steps, nothing to project onto, and about half as many chairs as we ought to have had.
Now, when you were working, describe the conditions.
They were pretty terrible. The foreman was yelling at us day in and day out, making us work all the time, pushing us really hard. There was nothing good to eat, and all they had was stinky porta potties to use the restroom in, nothing like the motels they promised us.
Now, how was the foreman's conduct?
Foreman yelled at us all the time, treated us like we were slaves.
And because of this, what did you do?
I yelled at him. I told him it was not okay for him to treat us like that.
How long were you working?
How long was I working? Most of the day.
Now, would you find your outbursts short-tempered?
Depends who you're asking.
Do you think that that was reflective of a short-tempered nature in yourself?
Objection leading. He's giving the answer to Ms. Edwards.
Response?
Questions that you did are not leading because they don't suggest an answer.
Response?
I really do. If she can answer yes or no, he's giving her the answer.
When is this any objection?
All right. Now, later, when did you see the defendant first?
Saw the defendant on the day of the 18th. Came to the island, looked around, and then went into the big house on the island. Came out again later looking real mad. Then he went on to his helicopter and flew away.
And why do you think the defendant looked angry?
Anybody could tell that the whole event was going to crash and burn. It was like what, half set up?
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the jury about your experience, your firsthand experience working on this project?
Yeah, it was terrible. Naylor Stegrum came, saw, and knew exactly that the event was going to fail and did nothing.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Ms. Edwards. Would you say that Vinny was one of the worst parts of your experience at the Satire Spectacle?
Definitely a big part.
And do you know who hired Vinny?
I guess the guy who runs Vision?
Chase Ford? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's his name.
And did you get paid for your work at the Satire Spectacle?
No, I did not.
And are you upset about that?
Stars, yes, I'm upset.
And you got fired, correct?
Yes.
And you got fired because you had a temper, right?
He was treating us like slaves. I got fired because I yelled at him.
And once you got fired, you sued Chase Ford's company, Vision, right?
They didn't pay me for my hours and hours of work. Yes, I sued them.
And you didn't get a lot of money from that, though, did you?
No, I didn't get a lot of money. They're basically bankrupt and they're run by a Twitter head.
$112, right?
Yeah.
And you're also getting paid to be here right now, right?
Yeah, like everybody else is.
$50 an hour. And do I have that number right?
Yeah, that's what they pay you.
So, are you getting paid more to be here right now than you were paid for your entirety of work at the Satire Spectacle?
Yeah, that's because the Vision is incompetent.
So, you want the jury here to think that you're here to just help, though, right?
Yes.
And one more question for you, Miss Edwards. Is it true that you are testifying today because you think Chase Ford belongs in prison?
Yes.
No more questions, Your Honor. I pass the witness.
Redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, you are saying that you are being paid $50 an hour to be here today. Is that changing your testimony?
No. Naylor Stegrum did something wrong, and it is not okay.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Recross?
No recross, Your Honor.
All right, the witness may step down. Plaintiff, call your next witness.
Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Carlin George to the stand. Miss George, how old are you?
25 years old.
And what is your current profession?
I'm a bank teller.
And would you consider yourself living paycheck to paycheck?
Yeah, I'm a thrift store and fast food kind of girl. I live with my parents so I can help pay the bills.
And so how do you know about the defendant, Naylor Stegrum?
I followed him on a social media platform called Chirpster.
And so why did you purchase a ticket for the Satire Spectacle?
I admired him a lot. He was this guy that lived this amazing life, and so I thought he was so cool. And he talked about it constantly and chirped about it constantly, and so I decided a month after he started posting to purchase a ticket.
And how much was this admissions ticket for regular admissions to the Satire Spectacle?
It was really expensive. It was $500.
And what were the accommodations that they described would come about with this regular admissions ticket?
They said that we were going to get to have a ferry ride to Yarborough Island where the spectacle was held. They said that we were going to have accommodations similar to glamping, which is glamorous camping, I believe. And they said we were going to have enough food and water.
And did it take a chunk out of your weekly paycheck to afford one of these tickets?
Yeah, I had to save for 2 months to be able to afford it.
And what happened when you chirped about purchasing this ticket?
Naylor Stegrum re-chirped my post, which at the time I thought was really cool. But considering the circumstances, I'm not so psyched right now.
And so why did you decide then to upgrade your ticket from regular to select?
So a week before the spectacle happened, he chirped about going to Yarborough Island and about how it had been this amazing thing and about how it was going to be so great and so fun. And he said that everyone should upgrade their tickets. And so I just got in a mid-year raise and I used all of my money to buy the upgraded ticket.
And Ms. George, how much was the upgraded ticket?
It was $2,500.
And what sort of accommodations did the select ticket promise?
They said that we were going to have an opportunity to meet some of the comedians. They said that we were going to be able to have closer seats, and they said that we were going to get to stay in things called villas, which they gave us sketches of.
Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence what has been previously marked as Exhibit Number 3. Your Honor, may I approach the opposing counsel? Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what has been previously marked as Exhibit Number 3?
You may.
Now, Ms. George, tell the jury, was this the promised villa that was promised for you with your select tickets?
Yes. Yes, it was.
And now, does that look like what you actually lived in while you were at Yarborough Island?
No, we stayed in refugee tents. This looks nothing like what we were supposed to have.
And Your Honor, may I publish into evidence what has been previously marked as Exhibit Number 3?
Objection, improper predicate.
I'm going to sustain the objection. That exhibit has not been admitted into evidence as of yet.
Your Honor, you said that I could, when I entered into evidence, that I could
Yes, it
give
is.
it to the opposing counsel.
It has not been admitted into evidence. You showed that to opposing counsel, but you did not submit it for. You did not set it up for being admitted into evidence. So until you do so, I cannot admit it into evidence. The objection is sustained.
From who did you receive most of your information about the satire spectacle?
I received all of my information from Naylor Stagram.
And how did Naylor Stagram promote this event?
He chirped about it all the time.
And what kind of chirps was he sending out the weeks right before the event?
He said things like hashtag laughing it up and hashtag my beaches. And he talked about how it was going to be this great thing and how we were all going to have such a fun time, and that if we didn't go, we were going to be missing out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
And so, Ms. George, what happened when you actually arrived at Yarborough Island?
So at the beginning, it was fine. We watched a few comedian acts. I had this drink that wasn't half bad, but then that's when everything started to fall apart.
And how would you describe the food and accommodations that were actually there?
There was one sandwich for 3 people. There were 2 water bottles for 3 people. You know how thirsty, how hysterical I had to have been to drink water from a puddle? From a puddle. I'm not dumb, but how thirsty I was to have to do that, that's insane. And I wouldn't have gone if it weren't for him.
And did Naylor notify any of his followers about this lack of necessities?
No?
And how did you find out that the event was ultimately canceled?
People who were on in staff t-shirts came and told us.
And did Naylor still chirp anything about the event?
No, he didn't show up at all.
And what was the night like for you?
It was the worst night of my entire life. I wanted to die.
And so why were you ultimately admitted to Texoma General Hospital?
I drank water from this puddle that had waterborne bacteria in it, and I was so dehydrated and I caught the bacteria that I ended up having to be admitted into the hospital.
And now, Ms. George, would you have been put in the same state had the defendant, Naylor Stagram, disclaimed properly about the event?
No, I would not have. I wouldn't have gone to anything if it weren't for him.
And finally, so do you hold Vision CEO Chase Ford accountable for any of this?
No, I don't hold him. I understand that he set it up, but the only reason I went, the only reason that anything happened is because of this person. And I lost so much. It took all of my savings to do this. And I don't want apologies. I don't want any of their condolences. I want them to pay for what they did to me.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Miss George, have you ever hosted a major party or a wedding or any event like that?
No.
So, but are you still aware of how many moving parts it takes to get something like this off the ground?
Objection, speculation.
Response?
I'm just asking her if she knows about the planning.
Objection is sustained.
So, do you know about the monsoon and how it wasn't expected?
Yeah, I was there.
So you know that there are situations that nobody can control, like the monsoon?
Objection speculative.
Response?
I'm just asking her if she knows about unplanned events.
The objection is sustained.
Let's talk about your relationship with Naylor. You didn't really have one, did you? It was just based on church, correct?
Objection relevance.
Overruled.
I, like a lot of people my age as millennials, I follow...
I'm sorry, I'm just asking for a yes or no question, or answer.
Can you restate the question?
I can. You didn't really have a relationship with Naylor, correct? It was just based on church.
I would say I did.
But you never directly talked to Naylor, did you?
No.
So, when you were at the festival, Naylor didn't make you drink the water, did she?
Did you make me drink the water? That's how you phrased the question. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm asking you if Miss Instagram made you drink the water.
No.
No. No further questions.
Redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. George, can you explain to the jury why you drank this bottle of water?
I was so dehydrated that all night, I didn't sleep all night. I thought about how thirsty I was. And so in the morning, after not having had any water in over 12 hours, I saw a puddle of water, which was the only water in sight. I looked all around for anything else, and it was the only water that I saw. So of course I drank it. It was my only option.
That's all, Your Honor.
Recross?
No, Your Honor.
All right, the witness may step down. Plaintiff, please call your next witness.
Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Chase Ford to the stand. Miss Ford, how old are you?
I am 33 years old.
And what is your current profession?
I am currently a business entrepreneur, and I live at home to help my elderly parents and to take care of their home.
Miss Ford, what was your vision for the satire spectacle?
I had this amazing vision. It was supposed to be this big, fantastic event, exclusive, and I put a lot of work into these events. They're my livelihood, and they're what I've been doing my entire life.
Now, what steps did you take to get this idea off the ground?
So the first step I took was I contacted my investors who were immediately on board. Then I booked Yarborough Island, the island that I wanted the event to be at. And then I contacted Sean Wallace, my vendor.
Now, why did you employ the help of Instagram?
So when I talked to Sean Wallace, he said he didn't want to sell me anything until I got a comedian or a celebrity on board. So that's when I thought, oh, Instagram.
So what was the defendant's reaction when you asked for his help for the satire spectacle?
So I used a majority of the investor's money to talk to Instagram, and he was very rude to me. He said he was too busy, and he was very reluctant at first to help out with the event.
Your Honor, may I may I enter Exhibit 10 as evidence?
Any objections?
May we see the document first? No objections, Your Honor.
At this time, I'm going to not admit that into evidence until you lay the proper foundation for it.
What was the defendant's role in the satire spectacle?
So Instagram's role was to promote the event, and because I am his employer, also to take my advice extremely seriously.
How did the first couple of weeks go for the production of Satire Spectacle?
They were fantastic. The ticket sales were through the roof, and so I wasn't worried at all.
What were some of the problems you noticed within the satire spectacle?
So about a week and a half before the actual event started, the construction site was a little behind schedule, and so my investors and I talked, and we decided that the best thing for our customers would be to postpone the event, and if all necessary, to cancel the event. So I went and expressed my concerns to Instagram.
Now, how did you express these concerns of yours?
Oh my goodness. So when I talked to him, he was visiting the island and the compound because I wanted him to see how badly this event was going to be if we pushed through with it. And he yelled at me and screamed at me, and I felt very scared and threatened.
Why didn't you bypass Naylor's obstinacy and cancel or postpone the event?
So there's two reasons, actually. I gave it a lot of thought. The first one was he was the face of my event, and I know because he has such a big internet presence that if he continued to promote the event, there was honestly nothing I could do to stop people from listening to him. And the second reason is because he would ruin my reputation if I tried to bypass him and cancel the event.
What happened as a result of Naylor's obstinacy towards postponing the event?
Well, he kept promoting the event. He did not listen to my advice as his employer. And so eventually that led to some very traumatic experiences, especially for Carl and George.
How could Carl and George's situation have been avoided?
So I feel very sorry for Carl and George. I never meant for anything like that to happen. I planned this event very much ahead, and I think the biggest way this whole situation could have been avoided is if Naylor Stagram had listened to my advice and had not threatened me and had just sought the interest of my customers instead of his reputation.
Thank you, Arnold. That's all.
Cross?
Yes, sir. This one. Now, was this satire spectacle event entirely of your own... Let me rephrase that. You came up with this entire event yourself, yes?
It was my vision, and I talked to my investors, who also really helped me to plan this event.
Simply yes or no, please. Sorry, just simply yes or no, please. Did you find it difficult to get this event off the ground to begin with?
Not after I talked to my investors and Sean Wallace.
And is it you who wanted Naylor to be part of the spectacle?
It was actually Sean Wallace who initially brought it up.
You still hired, you said Naylor was rude, but you still proceeded to hire them, yes?
Because Sean Wallace would not work with me unless I did.
But he never explicitly required you to hire him, did he?
He exclaimed that the best option for a celebrity would actually be Instagram.
But he said best option, not only option, though, correct?
Correct.
And you and Mr. Grab, you signed a contractual agreement, yes?
Yes, on April 2nd, she signed a contract.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with Exhibit 10?
So long as you show opposing counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Ford, do you recognize these documents?
Yes, I do.
Are they fair and accurate copies?
Yes, they are.
Can you identify any alterations made to it?
Not that I'm aware of.
Your Honor, I move to publish the Exhibit 10 as evidence.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
The exhibit is admitted into evidence.
First, I publish evidence to the jury.
You may.
If you would kindly, Ms. Ford, would you read section 3?
Yes,
A, B, and C.
I will. Section 3. Instagram's representations and warranties. Instagram hereby represents and warrants the following. A. Instagram will use best efforts to post about the event on Chirpster no less than the frequency described in paragraph 1.
If I may stop you for just a moment. She kept posting even after your conversation with her, but was that not simply what was abided by her contract? That she post a minimum amount per week before the event?
Unless I specifically suggested not to.
Does that contract state specifically that you, does the contract state that she must stop if you tell her to?
No, it only says when she will post. It does not say anything about negations.
Right. And would you mind reading section B of that?
Yes, I can. Instagram will only post positive, non-derogatory statements about the event.
So according to this agreement, she literally could not have posted anything derogatory about the event, such as the event is not going well, correct?
As long as this contract is upheld, that is correct.
Therefore, she couldn't really have told her fan base, don't come to this event, right?
Could you clarify and explain when she could not have done that?
After you notified her of the problems facing the event, she still was obligated to continue posting positive things about the event, was she not?
Mm-hmm. She was to listen to my advice.
To listen to your advice, but that never specifically says she must adhere to your advice, does it?
No, but I thought that went without saying.
But it's not explicitly said in the contract?
No, it is not stated exactly.
And would you mind reading section C of that contract?
Yes, I can. Instagram shall take all reasonable efforts to ensure that no adverse publicity or commentary about the event appears on Instagram's Tripster account.
So that could also include from her own self, which she could also at the same time not do.
Objection, Your
regardless.
Honor. Ambiguous.
Response?
Sir, if you would let me finish my question.
Please repeat the question.
Yes, Your Honor. One moment to grab myself, please. Thank you. So,
To me, I haven't rolled on the objection yet.
oh, apologies. Pardon, would you please repeat?
So the question you just asked the witness, please repeat it to me.
I was asking if I was going to ask if she was aware that Mr. Graham could not legally say anything negative about the event, including that it should be canceled, things were not going well, and that she was obligated to prevent that from being.
The objection is sustained.
Right. Still, she could not have posted anything negative on her Chirpster, correct?
She could have.
But then she would be in breach of contract, would she not?
As long as the contract was upheld. And she
Which
still
the
had-
contract was upheld, was it not?
Objection. Ask and answer.
Objection is sustained.
Was the contract upheld?
During what time?
Was the contract with Naylor upheld by the end of, up until the end of the event?
Well, not until, you mean when I canceled it eventually?
Yes,
Or up
yeah.
until July 1st, when everybody left the island?
Until you canceled the event.
Yes.
Therefore, Naylor did nothing but obey her contract, correct?
He did not listen to my advice to cancel the event.
He listened, pardon that, but he did listen to you, did he not? He physically heard you speak the words. He physically heard you speak that the event was not going well?
Yes. He was
Objection.
physically
Ambiguous.
present.
I was simply asking if she was physically present if she is aware that Naylor was physically present.
I'm going to overrule the objection.
Yes, he was physically present. We had a conversation in the
And he
compound.
therefore heard you say, he listened to you, correct?
Yes, he did.
Therefore, no breach of contract. And he did everything he could to abide by the contract,
Was that a question?
correct? Yes, he did everything he could to abide by the contract, correct? By the standards set by it?
Yes.
Objection? Compound question?
Response?
Was there a secondary question in that, Your Honor? I don't believe there was.
Response? I'm going to go ahead and overrule the objection.
But, so, yeah. Permission to withdraw the exhibit from the witness, sir?
You mean retrieve it? Yes.
Along with that, Ms. Ford, there are also a few other matters, such as your managers. Do you find yourself at fault for the failure of the event?
Not entirely, absolutely not.
And then do you view your subsidiary managers as being at fault for the failure of the event?
Not entirely.
But more so than yourself?
Yes.
Even though the event was entirely your idea and the managers were simply obeying your whims, correct?
Well, just because I'm their employer doesn't mean that they will absolutely obey me every time I tell them to do something.
But they obey. But you never said anything to the managers about them not. You never noticed them not doing what you're asking them to.
Not with my own eyes. Of course, I have higher managers.
Madam, sorry. Yes or no? It's sufficient, please. But you never told your managers that they needed to stop what they were doing, as they weren't working well.
No, I asked.
Objection? Your sec?
Response?
Sure, I'm asking her statement to her managers.
Objection is overruled.
Could you repeat the question, please?
You never specifically told your managers to stop what they were doing, did you?
I asked if they could do the best they possibly could for this event.
But you never told them to stop what they were doing after you knew the event was failed? Or after you realized the event wasn't working?
Instagram pressured me to continue the event, so there was.
But
no
you still
way
never
to-
told your managers that they needed to stop what they were doing.
No.
So you find your managers at fault, at least partially at fault, even though you never told them to stop what they were doing?
I believe that.
And just yes or no will suffice, please.
Objection? Argumentative question?
Response?
There was no argument present in the question, sir. Your Honor.
Objection is sustained.
You never asked your managers to stop what they were doing, correct?
As I previously stated, that is correct.
But you still find your managers partially at fault, correct?
Only slightly. The bulk of the fault is Instagram's.
Even though Instagram was simply doing what you asked them to do, and as you admitted, doing it very well, correct?
I don't ever recall stating in this courtroom
You stated
that
that-
I did it very well.
You stated that the event was exceeding expectations, did you not?
That was prior to when I ever talked to Instagram and prior to when I had the meeting with my investors 1.5 weeks before the event.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with her statement.
You may.
I do. Now, you met Instagram. You met Instagram first before the summer, yes?
Sorry, I couldn't understand.
You first met Instagram before the summer started, yes?
Yes, I did.
Objection? Relevance?
Your Honor, it's prefacing the next question. It's establishing the timing. It's establishing the timing of the situation.
I'm going to go ahead and overrule the objection.
You say you were not having. You say you didn't have success. You said that you claimed your success was happening before Instagram even joined the project.
No, that is not what I claimed.
I believe a few moments ago you just stated that you stated that, quote, the event was going Great, but then you claimed that that was before Instagram had joined the project.
The event was...
Objection, ambiguous.
Response.
I'm simply telling her what she stated a moment ago.
Objections overruled.
So, to clarify what I said earlier, I hired Instagram, and the tickets were selling very fast. But then everything started to go wrong.
Pardon, but you stated that tickets are selling very fast after you hired Instagram?
Yes.
A few moments ago you stated it was before you hired Instagram, was it not?
I don't recall saying that.
Objection, badgering the witness.
I'm going to go ahead and sustain the objection. Let's move on.
Yes, sir. I believe that's everything, Your Honor. I pass the witness.
All right. Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Ford, they've camped a lot on the contract. Did or did not the defendant say the event would go well?
To clarify, are you asking me if Nailorstagram asked me if the event would go well?
No, I'm specifically talking about
Objection,
his
Your Honor,
Twitter
hearsay.
account.
Response.
Can you repeat that?
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
Response.
I was simply just asking if if he had stated that on his Chirpster if the event would go well, relevant to the next question.
Response.
He's asking for he's asking for the statements of another person, information that was not presented in evidence. Your Honor.
There's an exception to the hearsay rule you wish to cite.
Exhibit.
I'm going to go ahead and sustain the objection. All right.
Ms. Ford, in the contract, does it say that Nailorstagram has to abide by everything you say?
Not explicitly, but it was definitely a verbally understood agreement
Right.
because I am his employer.
Now, does it state in the contract to yell at you or threaten you with any form of disagreement that has to do with the event?
No, he did that of his own free will, and he threatened me and yelled at me.
Thank you.
Recross.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Ford, you are aware of what a contract is, yes?
Yes, I am.
And you are aware that a contract must be abided to the word?
Yes.
And anything not present, and you are also aware that anything not in the contract is, well, simply not part of the contract?
Objection, badgering the witness.
Objection is sustained.
But you're aware. You're aware if something is not in the contract, it is not an obligation of the participants in the contract?
Objection, ambiguous.
Response.
I'm simply asking if she's aware that things that are stated in the contract are obligations of those participating in the contract.
Have you asked that question before?
I do not believe I have, sir.
Objections overruled.
You are aware of that, yes?
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
You're aware whatever is stated in the contract is obligations of the participants in the contract?
Yes, that is the
Objection.
definition of a contract.
Asked and answered.
Objection is sustained.
You are aware that anything not in the contract is not required?
Not.
Anything-
That's not entirely true.
But anything
It's
not
just
explicit-
not. It's just not required
please.
by the laws of the contract.
Correct, but nothing, if it's not explicitly stated in the contract, it is not required by the contract legally to be done, correct?
Objection, asked and answered.
Objection is sustained.
Your Honor, I pass the witness.
Witness may step down. All right, plaintiff, do you have any more witnesses to call?
No, Your Honor.
All right, is plaintiff rest?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Defense, are you prepared to start your case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Call your first witness.
Defense call Sean Wallace to the stand. please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Sean Wallace.
Would you mind telling me a little bit about yourself?
Yes, me and my husband have 3 kids, and I own the company First Class Entertainment.
Are you familiar with the defendant?
No, not personally.
Are you familiar with the plaintiff?
Not personally.
And what do you know about the satire spectacle event?
Objection, Your Honor, that's a very ambiguous question you refer to. It could refer to a lot of things.
Response?
I'm just asking what her knowledge of the event is.
I'm going to overrule the objection, but I will ask you to rephrase your question.
Yes, sir. What was your involvement in the satire spectacle event?
Well, Chase called me wanting an estimate on apparel and food and wanting me to supply it for the event.
Was there a bill or contract provided for this deal?
Yes, there was.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with Exhibit 11.
So long as you show the opposing counsel first.
Ms. Wallace, do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
Is this a fair and accurate copy?
Yes.
Can you identify any alterations to the document?
No.
Your Honor, permission to publish Exhibit 11 to evidence.
Any objections?
No objections, Your Honor.
The exhibit is admitted into evidence.
Permission to provide the jury with a copy of Exhibit 11.
May.
So, Ms. Wallace, you mentioned the purchases from Chase Ford. Would you mind reading out the total price of all of Chase Ford's purchases?
The original food and apparel was about $600,000.
What payment did you receive for this order?
I received none of it.
Were there any alterations made?
Yes, after the original estimate, Chase added a lot more apparel and VIP items. That was the first time that Chase changed it.
And was there compensation for this cost adjustment?
No.
And were there any further alterations after the secondary one?
Yes, there was. About a week and a half before the event, Chase called me and said that she basically wanted to switch to the lowest quality food that a human being could consume, after I had already got all of the gourmet food.
And what was the revised price of this order?
The price for the new food was about $56,000.
Was payment received for this order?
No, it was not.
How would you describe this order? How would you describe the food you provided for the event?
The food was mostly hamburgers and hot dogs. Well, the revised food.
And who requested that you order this food?
Chase Ford.
In your opinion, then, would you consider this food gourmet?
No.
Yes. And did you ever receive payment whatsoever for anything you did?
Objection, Your Honor, that question has been asked and answered.
Objection is sustained.
What did you receive for the final order of food?
No money, but I did receive $5,000 from Vision's bankruptcy.
And what was the effect of this net loss?
Well, as the main provider for my family with 3 children, it definitely makes it hard.
And what happened to your company after this incident?
My company is now bankrupt.
I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, I'd ask the court to take judicial notice of the fact that 40% of $600,000 is about $240,000.
Let's not do that here. Well, if you can find a way to get that into your line of questioning, please do that. But we'll we'll skip with judicial notice for now.
Fair, thank you. Then would you agree that 40% of about $600,000 is $240,000?
That is correct.
And those values are in order. The amount of money that you would have made on the first order and the 40% down payment that you usually charge.
I'm sorry, can you restate the question for me?
Is about $600,000 the amount or the total amount of money that is charged for the first order,
For the first order, yes.
and about $240,000 is the down payment that would have been charged on that first order.
Yes,
So, but you waived that down payment, correct?
I did because of Instagram.
Yeah, you waived it because you thought that Instagram's influence had a tendency to make the event successful, correct?
I knew that if Instagram was
Objection,
involved.
Yes or no?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Response?
I was asking what she thought at the time of the event of waiving the down payment.
I'm gonna go ahead and overrule the objection.
Did you waive the down payment because you thought that Naylor Stagram's involvement was likely to make the event more successful?
Yes, I knew if Instagram was involved with the event, it was going to be a big success.
All right, then let's imagine an alternative situation. Let's say the entire event had gone smoothly. You would have made money.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Response?
With a little bit of leeway, Your Honor, this will produce a fruitful line of questioning.
I'll give you a little leeway. Objection's overruled.
I appreciate it. Now, let's say the event had gone completely correctly. You would have, the way you saw it when you first waived the down payment, you would have made money because of Naylor Stagram's involvement, correct?
Correct.
Yet, now that you have lost money, you're not saying that it's because of Naylor Stagram, you're saying it's because of Chase Ford, correct?
Yes.
That's a double standard. No further questions, Grover.
Redirect? Counsel, redirect?
No redirection, Your Honor.
All right, the witness may step down. Defense, please call your next witness.
The defense would like to call Jackie Gleason to the stand. Please introduce yourself to the jury
I'm Jackie Gleason.
and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Well, I guess most...
Objection, narrative.
I'm just asking her to tell the jury about herself a little bit.
I'm going to sustain the objection. Please rephrase your question.
What do you like to do in your free time?
Well, I guess most people call me a world-famous comedian. Now, I don't know much about being famous, but I do know a whole lot about being funny. I was voted funniest in high school, and can you blame them? If you've seen my comedy specials on Netflix, you know they picked the right gal.
So why are you here today?
I guess I'm here to talk about...
Objection, narrative.
Response?
I mean, we're here because of the witnesses. They should know why she's here today.
I'm going to overrule that objection.
I mean, I guess I'm here to talk about the spectacle or spectacular disaster that was the satire spectacle.
And what was your role in the satire spectacle?
Something like I was supposed to perform this big thing on the very last night. A bunch of other, less funny comedians were gonna roast me or something weird like that. I don't know.
And how did you get this role?
Well, Naylor, obviously.
And what is your relationship with Miss Instagram?
Oh my goodness. Naylor is one of my best friends. Only your friends get to call her Naylor, you know. And yeah.
So let's talk about the satire spectacle. When did you first see the island?
Well, me and Naylor visited the
Objection.
island.
Relevant.
Response?
Again, this case is about the satire spectacle. I think we should hear what she has to say about the island that it was at.
I'm going to go ahead and sustain the objection. I will allow you to rephrase though.
When you got to the island for the first time, was there anything that stood out to you or anything?
Well, me and Jackie visited the island on I think it was about the 18th, 11 days or so before, and let's just say it was not pretty. The homes that they had promised looked a lot more like tents to me. And don't get me wrong, there was plenty of room to build more, but there definitely wasn't enough to fit the 5,000 people that were supposed to show up. I mean, there weren't even any real buildings on the island, except for one. Chase kept calling it the compound, something like that.
What's the compound?
Oh, it was this beautiful 1,600 square feet estate. Perfect for a celebrity like myself, I would say.
And who was at the compound?
Objection, relevance.
Response?
I'm talking about part of the satire spectacle.
Objection sustained.
So when you got there the second time, was there anything that had been changed or altered or anything?
I did notice 2 brand new helipads. Me and some of the other few comedians landed on one in a helicopter. They definitely hadn't been there before. I remember the first time we went, we landed on this weird, broken, makeshift thing. It's basically made out of plywood. I mean, come on.
But when you got there, there was no new housing or anything for the regular attendees to stay at?
Not that I'm aware of.
And in your opinion, do you think Instagram is responsible for this?
Listen, I know I joke
Objection.
around a lot.
Speculation.
Response?
I'm asking for her opinion, and I feel like the jury should hear her opinion on this case.
Objection is overruled.
Well, listen, I know I joke around a lot. It's my career after all. I'm a comedian. But Naylor is one of my best friends, and I'd like to say I know her better than anyone. And no, she'd never do anything like that. Why? I don't even get that. I mean, she was paid to do a job, and she followed through. Nothing more, nothing less.
No further questions.
Cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Gleason, you first met Mr. Stubgram at a birthday party, did you not?
True, it's her birthday.
And Mr. Stubgram told you about the satire spectacle at this party, correct?
I don't recall.
You don't know when the satire spectacle was told about you, when it was told to you.
Objection relevance?
Response?
It is relevant to know how you received information about your job, especially for a case like this.
Response?
I don't understand why they need to know about how they met and how she got offered the job.
Objection is overruled.
I believe it was the same day. Can't quite remember. I know it happened, though, obviously.
And when you first visited Yarborough Island on June 18th, you saw that the campsite construction was completely behind schedule, correct?
I mean, I don't know anything about construction. I just saw construction. I didn't know how finished or far along it was. I'm a comedian. I don't know anything about that stuff.
Despite the fact that you were supposed to stay on the island that night, Naylor announced without explanation that you had to leave, correct?
That's not true. She had a call. We had to be somewhere. I didn't question it because I trust her.
You expressed concerns about the state of the event, correct?
I mean, a little, but I don't know. I'm not the professional here.
And it is true that Mr. Stubgram ignored your concerns about the state of the event, correct?
No. No, I don't recall.
Mr. Stubgram refused to tell you the name of his friend whom he abandoned you to see, right?
Correct, but that's personal.
Would you say that it is relevant when he's leaving you for an event that he asked you to go to with him?
I mean, I guess so, but it's not my business.
So, Stubgram was never actually present for the event which he promoted and defended, correct?
Correct.
That's all, Your Honor.
Redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, the witness may be seated. Defense, call your next witness.
The defense calls Naylor Stagram to the stand. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you please turn to the jury and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Naylor Stagram, but you can call me Instagram because only my really close friends can call me Naylor.
Ma'am, why are you here today?
I'm here today because I'm being sued by Carl and George.
And what was your involvement in the satire spectacle?
I was the main advertiser for the event.
How did you end up with that job?
Chase Ford offered me the job.
When did y'all first meet?
We met in Miami over spring break.
And when y'all first met, did he offer you a job?
Yes, he did. Unfortunately, I was unable to take it because I was busy doing a modeling gig with Abercrombie & Itch and was just too busy.
So how did you end up as a promoter of the satire spectacle?
Well, then we re-met in LA at a fashion show and he had great promotional material and it seemed like a great event to be a part of.
And when you got the job, did he make you sign any contracts or documents?
Yes, he did.
Would you notice that contract if I were to show it to you?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what has been marked as Exhibit 10.
So I'll let you show the counsel first.
That's it. Mr. Graham, what have I just handed to you?
You handed me my promotion agreement with Chase Ford.
Your Honor, I'm not sure if this has been offered into evidence.
I believe Exhibit 10 has been admitted evidence.
Ma'am, did you abide by this contract?
Yes, I did.
And did you do everything that was stated on it?
Yes, I did.
And can you read to us Article B under Instagram's representations and warranties?
Instagram will only post positive, non-derogatory statements about the event.
And that's the very thing you did, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And if you hadn't had done that, what would have happened?
My promotion agreement would be canceled and my contract would be canceled and I'd be taken off the team.
So let's talk about the event itself. When did you go to the island?
We went to the island on June 18th.
And what did you do there?
Objection, call for narrative.
Response?
This is simply setting up the questions that will be following it.
I'm gonna go ahead and overrule the objection.
Can you
Would you like
restate the
to-
question?
What did you do when you got there?
Well, we went to the compound and I talked with Chase Ford and about the event and he told me how well it was going and that's really all that happened.
And during your conversation with Chase Ford, was there any aggression?
Not that I recall, no.
Did you trust Chase Ford?
Yes, I did.
And regarding the satire spectacle, who was your main source of information?
Chase Ford.
So before or during the event, did he make you aware of any issues?
No, he always assured me that everything was on schedule and everything was going to work out for the event.
And did you end up going yourself?
Unfortunately, I was unable to attend. One of my friends was admitted into rehab and I needed to be there for them.
Well, I'm sorry about that, and I hope they get better.
Thank you.
So when did you start getting news about the disaster?
Well, Jackie Gleason texted me that night that there was a monsoon coming, and then the next morning I heard about all the disasters that had happened and everything wrong with the event.
And do you know Miss George?
No, I do not.
You are a influencer, correct?
Yes, I am.
Have you had any other jobs other than that?
No, I've only been an influencer.
You've never been in a labor job or a construction job, anything like that?
No, I have not.
So would you be able to recognize if something was delaying in progress as far as the development of a structure?
No, I have no idea how construction works.
So no one can say that you would notice that there was scaffolding.
Objection, leading.
Objection is sustained.
All right. Well, so to be clear, did you know that the construction was behind?
No, Chase Ford always assured me it was on time.
And last question for you, Ms. Ford. After all this has occurred, what did it do to your reputation?
Well, a reputation is everything to a social media influencer. If you don't have a good reputation, you're not trustworthy. And if you're not trustworthy, you're not getting jobs, you're not being hired, and you can't do your work. And this really damaged my reputation, and I just feel like I'm being blamed for something by Chase Ford that I wasn't in charge of.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Graham. I pass the witness.
Cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Graham, you're only 24 years of age, correct?
That's correct.
And you would say that you pride yourself off your tremendous influence over others on your social media account, Chirpster, correct?
I suppose so, yes.
And your livelihood as a social media influencer depends on you promoting a positive image of yourself, correct?
Yes, that's how the job works.
While also maintaining a good rapport and a likable facade with many of your followers, correct?
Yes.
And this, moreover, enables you to effectively influence nearly 500,000 followers through promoting and selling products on your social media account, Chirpster, correct?
Yes.
Therefore, if the credibility and legitimacy of what you influence is ever taken into account as being negative, that would hurt you, correct?
Can you restate the question?
If your, say, brand image or your likability amongst your followers was ever called into consideration, that would most likely hurt your image, correct?
Yes.
And hurt your ability to sell products, correct?
Yes.
And this would most definitely hurt your finances, correct?
Yes, it's the whole job.
Ms. Steger, in your statement, you said that at first you declined Chase Ford's offer to promote the satire spectacle because, as you stated, quote, I didn't see much in it for me, correct?
I believe so, yes.
However, once Chase Ford offered your agent the contract, you accepted the offer to become the primary promoter of the satire spectacle, correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Graham, in this agreed contract, you were assured a lump sum payment of $100,000, correct?
I don't recall the exact amount, but I believe so, yes.
Which means that regardless of how well the satire spectacle actually did, you were coming away with a hefty payment of $100,000, correct?
Yes.
Unlike Chase Ford, who was more dependent on
Objection,
sales
Your Honor,
commission.
that's not relevant to this, to Miss Instagram.
Response?
Your Honor, the amount of money that the witness is getting paid to promote this event is basically the whole ordeal of this trial.
Objection's overruled.
Regardless, you still had some financial stake in the outcome of the satire spectacle, correct?
Can you define what you mean?
That means that you had sales commission, precisely 10% sales commission, meaning that however many tickets were sold, you would get 10% of those ticket profit.
That's correct.
But it was stipulated in your contract that you receive no sales commission under two conditions. Number one, for tickets not purchased through your ticket link, and number two, if the satire spectacle was canceled, correct?
Yes.
Objection, that's a compound question.
Objection is sustained.
So, would you agree that you promoted the satire spectacle for the financial gain?
It was, a lot of the promotional material seemed great, so it seems like a great event to
Objection,
be a
Your
part
Honor.
of.
Witness has not answered my question.
I think she responded. I think she responded sufficiently. Objection is overruled.
And due to your established position as a professional influencer with 500,000 Chirpster followers, you were in a prime position to influence your followers to buy tickets and capitalize off of this, correct?
Yes, again, that's my job.
And you indeed did capitalize off of this, describing the ticket sales you were procuring as skyrocketing, correct?
Yes.
You even described the satire spectacle as, quote, an event I was personally making into a huge success, correct?
Yes.
The success of the event would not only provide you with a hefty payment, but most definitely help your brand image, correct?
Yes.
And as established before, the upkeep of the Instagram brand is vital to your prolonged ability to sell your products, correct?
Can you repeat the question?
The success of the event, and as established before, the upkeep of the Instagram brand would help your prolonged ability to be able to sell your products, correct?
Yes, again, that's my whole job.
So you were going to go through anything to make sure tickets were bought through your Chirpster account, correct?
I suppose so, yes.
And you really wanted the satire spectacle to take place because of the positive ramifications it could have for you, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Graham, you visited Yarborough Island on June 18th, approximately 2 weeks before the event was planned to take place, correct?
Yes.
And yet you described this scene with the phrase, quote, scaffolding and squatty potties everywhere, gross, correct?
Yes, but I don't know anything about construction. Is there an issue with that?
Mr. Graham, you did describe it in this way, though, correct?
I did, yes.
And additionally, a couple days after this visit, you saw Jason Pierce's post, which he posted on June 18th, showing the same images of construction that you saw in your visit, correct?
Yes.
Yet, you argue that Pierce's posts were misleading about the real state of the satire spectacle, right?
Repeat the question, please.
Mr. Graham, you argue that Jason Pierce's posts were misleading about the real state of the satire spectacle, is that correct?
Yes.
And why did you do this?
Why did I say they were misleading?
Yes.
Because they were. I was assured everything was on schedule.
Objection. The witness did not answer my question. I asked her to explain why she specifically said they were misleading, and she simply restated what she said before.
Go ahead and sustain the objection and direct the witness to answer the question.
Can you repeat the
I
question?
will repeat the question. So you argue that Pierce's posts were misleading about the real state of the satire spectacle. Why did you say they were
Objection,
misleading?
this is hearsay. He's using another person's words that is not in this courtroom.
Response?
I'm simply referencing the post that Jason Pierce posted online, nothing that he said outside this courtroom, so therefore that would not add up as hearsay.
Response?
Your Honor, has this exhibit been entered into evidence?
It was my understanding that this was pre-admitted into evidence before trial.
What exhibit is it?
It's the Jason Pierce post exhibit, which is specifically,
I believe it's Exhibit 8, correct?
it is Exhibit 8, yes, Your Honor.
Exhibit 8, I believe it was pre-admitted into evidence before trial.
It was Exhibit 8.
No further comments.
Objection is overruled.
Your Honor, may I continue with my cross-examination? However, in your statement, you later said that, quote, all Carlin had to do was read Jason Pierce's post on the Texoma Alternative, who, in their right mind, would go to the event if all that was true. Jason Pierce isn't as famous as me, but that's not my fault. You said this, correct?
What did I say it on?
I'm sorry, excuse me?
What did I say it on in my fact statement?
You said it in your witness statement.
My witness statement, thank you. I believe I said that, yes.
So while you still had the opportunity to profit off of ticket sales, you dismissed Pierce's concerns, correct?
Yes.
Yet after the fact that the satire spectacle was noted as a clear disaster, you mentioned before in the passage I read from your statement, actually acknowledged that Carlin George should have relied on Pierce's post for insight on the actual reality of the event, correct?
I don't recall.
So did you not say in the previous statement that which you agreed to saying that Carlin George should have listened to Jason Pierce's account of what had happened at the event?
Yes.
Which implies that you now recognize the inaccuracies within your chirps about the actual state of the satire spectacle, correct?
Yes, in my promotion agreement, I had to agree with what was going on in the...
And now you say that Pierce's posts are actually more legitimate than you thought before, correct?
More legitimate?
More legitimate. You said before that they were misleading, and now you agreed that they were more legitimate. So would you agree with that?
Objection, Your Honor, that is false. He said that she already agreed with that.
Response?
I'm saying that simply she said that Pierce's posts were misleading before, and now she's previously just said that they were not. So I was clarifying whether or not she meant to say that or not. So it was something that was asked and answered, but she didn't respond in the way that she responded to a different question to that, if that makes sense, Your Honor.
Objection's overruled.
After visiting Yarborough Island, seeing the construction that was going on, you didn't reach out to Chase Ford, correct?
Reach out to him? No.
You simply assumed that everything was going as planned, correct?
Since he assured me it was all on schedule and I don't work in the construction business, yes, I did.
But seeing Pierce's post and the current state of production for the event made you somewhat skeptical about whether or not the event was going to be as successful as you hoped, correct?
No, I mean, I've had all my evidence from Chase
Yet you
Ford.
described the current state of construction as gross, correct?
From what the construction was, I knew it was on schedule, but
And
as
this was
of
only
when the
11
construction
days
was.
before the satire spectacle, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, this is asked and answered.
Response?
This is relevant to the follow-up question that I'm asking.
That's not the objection, though. Objection is sustained.
Interestingly enough, though, regardless of possible doubts of yours after visiting the island, even describing it as gross, and the current state of production for the event, you chirped 11 more times saying how great the event was going to be, correct?
Part of my agreement. Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness of what has been previously marked as exhibit number 1?
As long as you show opposing counsel first.
Ms. George, on June 18th, the same day that you visited Yarborough Island, can you read the quote in which...
Objection, Your Honor, he has not entered Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Correct. Are you trying to get this admitted into evidence?
I plan to publish it after I approach the witness, yes.
Until you lay a proper foundation, I will not admit that exhibit into evidence.
Yes, Your Honor.
So please get it admitted in evidence before you question the witness over it.
You knew that any possible chance of cancellation would void any of the sales commission received from your promotion, correct?
Yes, I did.
And you chirped 11 more times for the purpose of motivating others to act upon your statements and purchase tickets, correct?
It's part of my agreement. Yes, I did.
So, since you acknowledge that Carl and George should have listened to Pierce's warnings about the event, those 11 chirps you chirped saying how spectacular the satire spectacle was going to be now seem pretty misleading, correct?
Can you repeat the question?
I said that since you acknowledge that Carl and George should have listened to Jason Pierce's warnings about the event, these 11 chirps that you chirped saying how spectacular the satire spectacle was going to be seem pretty misleading now, don't they?
From my knowledge then, they were accurate.
But now you would agree that they're more misleading, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, this is not relevant.
Response?
This is very relevant given the fact that she visited Yarborough Island on June 18th. She described it as gross, and yet she continued to promote it as a spectacular and encourage people to buy tickets. The very ticket that Carl and George bought was the link that she supplied on her chirp on June 18th, so it is very relevant.
Response?
Her thoughts now cannot be relevant to what she used to think in the past.
I'm going to go ahead and overrule the objection.
May I repeat the question?
You may.
Since you acknowledge that Carl and George should have listened to Pierce's warning about the event, those 11 chirps saying how spectacular the satire spectacle was going to be now seem pretty misleading, correct?
I suppose so.
And yet, Carl and George bought his ticket from one of those chirps, correct?
Yes, he did.
And so now, looking back on it, if those chirps were misleading and Carl and George bought his ticket from it, wouldn't you align yourself directly with what happened to Carl and George?
No, I would not.
Yet, you would agree that a large portion of people bought tickets because you promoted them the way you did, correct?
Yes.
And so understandably, if it didn't go as planned, as it did not, they would be disappointed in your excessive and glamorous promotion of it, correct?
Yes, but I wasn't in charge of...
Just like Carl and George, correct?
Your Honor, he's badgering our witness.
Objection sustained. Please watch your tone.
Yes, Your Honor. Carl and George relied on your promotion for insight into the event, correct?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Graham, what was your responsibility in the satire spectacle?
To advertise for the satire spectacle.
And nothing else, even development? That was not your responsibility.
No, I was solely in charge of advertising.
And that's exactly what you did, right?
Yes, it is.
And who ordered you to do that?
Chase board.
That's all the question I have. I pass the witness.
All right. Recross?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Graham, how did Carl and George know about the satire spectacle?
Found out from my chirps.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. The witness may be seated. Defense, do you have any more witnesses to call?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we will have a 2-minute recess, but before closing arguments begin. All right, let's begin with closing arguments.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
May it please the court, Your Honor, members of the jury, and opposing counsel. What a trial, really. And what a climactic conclusion to this search for truth. The defendant, Naylor Stegrom, admitted that she chirped about an event which she knew was not going to go well, that Carlin George got hurt because of it. That's the whole case. Let's back up a little bit. This is a civil case wherein we are testing to see if the defendant is liable to for the harm caused to the plaintiff. Now, if this were a criminal case, then I would be a prosecutor. And from Latin, a prosecutor is one who follows through on justice. Now, regardless of the phrasing, we are here to follow through on justice. We are here to say that Naylor Stegrom did 4 things. The law has given 4 tenets for what makes up a fraud charge. The first is that the defendant has made assertions about a fact. This is undeniable. Everyone here agrees that Naylor Stegrom on Chirpster said that the satire spectacle was happening and that it was going according to plan and that it would be good, that people should show up. Second is that the plaintiff reasonably relied on these things. He did. She did. Carlin George had no reason to distrust Naylor Stegrom and thus bought a ticket when it was encouraged that he do this thing that he would enjoy and that he loved to do. The third fact is that Naylor Stegrom, or the defendant, knew that what she was saying was false. And that is also undeniable. The big question in this trial is whether or not Naylor Stegrom knew that the event she was chirping about was going to fail. Now we can sort her chirps into 2 categories. The first is from before the time that she visited the island. The second is from after the time that she visited the island. Now, what happened when she visited the island? She saw everything was in disrepair. Now, she has claimed that she is not a construction worker, but you don't need to be a construction worker to see that 2 weeks out from an event, no structure, none of the villas built, none of the seating area existent. You don't need to be a construction worker to see that that's an issue. In fact, Murphy Edwards even testified that he saw Naylor walk out of the compound very upset, and that's because she knew this event was not going to go well, but that she was contractually obligated to continue talking about it, which she did. Fourth component is that Carlin George got hurt because of what she said. Again, that's undeniable. Before this trial, the parties had stipulated that Carlin George suffered waterborne bacteria, an illness therefrom, because of his involvement in the satire spectacle. So, 4 undeniable points. What has the defense said, though? They have spent their entire time not defending Naylor Stagram. Rather, they have been embarking on their own quest of prosecution for Chase Ford. Why Chase Ford? Chase Ford was perhaps responsible for the satire spectacle not going well. Let's say, even if that's the case, that's not the point. Chase Ford has been tried for that charge earlier and found not guilty. But they've put Chase Ford on trial and not defended Naylor Stagram. Naylor Stagram still made chirps, or still wrote chirps, that she knew were promising something false. Carlin George got hurt because of it, and that is fraud. This has all been admitted to under oath by Naylor Stagram. Now, our burden of evidence is 51% of the evidence has to show that Naylor Stagram is guilty. We've met that. And when I say guilty, I mean liable. That's my bad. We have shown that Naylor Stagram is liable for the medical bills of Carlin George. Therefore, when you deliberate, I urge you to examine the facts and examine the testimony and come to that same conclusion. Find Naylor Stagram liable. Thank you.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor, you're ready. May it please the court, opposing counsel, members of the jury. Confusion. That's what I think of when I rethink about this case. Confusion in Carlin George when she thinks that Instagram, the promoter of the event, was responsible for the lack of provisions on the island. Confusion when Chase Ford said on that stand that a contract isn't made to be completely abided by. And confusion when the plaintiff's team kept referring to the lovely Miss Carlin George as a he, his, and man. You see, when we refer to this case, we are referring to a fraud. Whether or not Miss Instagram committed a fraud. You see, when you look at this case and you look at the contracts and you look at the truth, it's sort of like a romaine lettuce salad, you know? There was an outbreak and people got sick, you know? But when you look at salad, you're not going to take that salad to court over that person getting sick, would you? You would find who made that romaine lettuce, who grew it, and then take them to court. That romaine salad is a lot like Miss Instagram. Miss Instagram was completely the messenger. She heard what Chase Ford told her and delivered it to her loyal followers. She did not intend to wrong them, and all she did was abide by that contract. You see, they think, and they want you to think that we are just trying to blame Miss Ford. You've probably heard that the best defense is offense. And yes, it is in this case, because you can't kill the messenger, as I say. She is the messenger. She is the promoter. The promoter cannot ruin an event. The promoter cannot have told Miss Carlin George, drink that dirty water and get sick, while she was in a rehab center with her friend taking care of her friend. I trust that after you have seen the events of this case, that you will return a verdict in favor of Miss Instagram. On behalf of myself, my client, my teammates, and our witnesses, we would like to sincerely thank you all for your time and attention on this day that God has given us.
All right, timekeepers. Your sheets in a second, sorry. Do either plaintiff or defense want to have any issues or have any material rules violations they would wish to raise at this time?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
The defense does not, and we rest our case.
All right. Your sheets, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Would like both counsel for both teams of witnesses to stand, turn around, and congratulate everybody. Thank them. Helping you get this. All right, you thank them for helping you get here today, so you clap for them.